So, what may be my final classic Doctor Who acquisition for this year, although you never know, Christmas is right around the corner, there may be something. 1985's The Two Doctors. Now, this one actually proved to be a little bit of trouble for me, but both in getting it and kind of beforehand, but because when I started collecting classic Doctor Who, I started with the regeneration episodes, as I may have mentioned before. Episodes like The 10th Planet, The War Games, Planet of the Spiders, Logopolis, you get the idea. But therein lay a bit of a problem, because I did get one of my presents last year for Christmas from a relative was one of the regeneration stories that had been on my list, that being Time and the Rani. But then that presents a little bit of a problem because Time and the Rani, you could argue whether it's a regeneration episode or it's more of a first episode. Because Colin Baker doesn't actually appear in it due to some mishap drama behind the scenes. He wasn't actually invited back for his regeneration episode. Instead, they just kind of dressed the new Doctor Sylvester McCoy in a wig and then removed it during the regeneration. So that left me with a little bit of a problem in that I was able to get regeneration episodes for each Doctor, but then since I had the regeneration episode of the Sixth Doctor and it wasn't really so much of a regeneration episode, I felt I had to get at least one proper episode for the Sixth Doctor. And when it came down to it, I had to juggle up between a choice of two. It was either The Two Doctors or Revelation of the Daleks. And in the end, The Two Doctors came up a little bit cheaper. So after a little bit of time, I finally managed to get The Two Doctors from 1985. Now, unlike the two previous multi-Doctor stories, those being The Three Doctors and The Five Doctors, which were both meant to celebrate the show's 10th and 20th anniversaries, on the pamphlet inside this one, this wasn't actually meant to celebrate an anniversary, this was just meant to tell a good story. And you know what? I think it does. Is it the best Doctor Who story ever? No, but you know what? I think it's fun. I mean, out of all the multi-Doctor stories, yeah, this one probably is the weakest, but you know what? It's still got some good stuff in there. The basic plotline of it is you've got the Sixth Doctor, played by Colin Baker, and his companion Perry, played once again by Nicola Bryant. Now, when the Doctor suddenly starts feeling kind of pains, he decides to go to a space station to visit an old friend called Dastari, played by Lawrence Payne. However, while there, he and Perry end up encountering former Doctor Who companion Jamie McCrimmon, played once again by Fraser Hines. He says that his version of the Doctor, played by Patrick Troughton, has been kidnapped and by some things, and he needs help finding him and saving the Doctor from basically what's going on. Now, as you can see from the box art, the Sontarans do appear in this particular story. You've got two Sontarans named Stike and Val, who their plan is to essentially use the Doctor to activate a time machine that they've created so that they can go back and join their war against the Rutans. Which is, okay, fair enough. But honestly, after watching through this episode, while the Sontarans do add a nice bit of humour here and there, and it's good to see them, I think, personally, you could have cut the Sontarans out of this episode and you probably wouldn't have missed very much. I mean, it's good to see them, but yeah. As I've said with other classic Doctor Who stories, it does have a few effects that, okay, for the 80s, they're debatable. For example, once again, there's the thing of different cameras being used outside to the ones inside, so that there's clearly a screen. I've spoken about that before. Also, the Sontaran costumes, when they got to the new series, while the new designs can be debatable among fans, they do at least now probably look like it is a proper creature, whereas these Sontarans are more just like people in rubber suits, which it's kind of a little distracting when you can see the lips moving underneath the rubber and it doesn't quite look right yet. But But then again, as I said, you could probably cut the Sontarans out and you wouldn't miss very much. But it was good to see them in there. The main, the kind of big villain piece of this isn't necessarily the Sontarans, but is more that the two doctors and their companions have to deal with a set of three villains. You got the scientist Dastari, who is mainly just trying to go along with things to give. He does have moments of good towards the end, but yeah, he's not so much of a bad guy. The bad guys more come from uh, a former servant of his known as an Androgun. One of them called Chesini, played by Jacqueline Pierce, who, when she has her evil moment, she goes really sinister. It shows that she ultimately plans to give, I believe, lead a kind of rebellion of the Androgum and lead them up against their oppressors, which throughout the episode you kind of see the doctors and other characters going, you can't give immense intelligence to an Androgum. Like, well, of course we can, we managed to do it. But the other big point of this, and what maybe is the highlight of this three-part story, is the other villain, Shockeye, played by John Stratton, who, the best way of describing him, he's like a demented butcher. He is constantly thinking about food and then saying how he wants to find a human so he can cut them up and ultimately find out what humans taste like. Which, it's both hilarious, every scene he's in is hilarious, but then there's also a slight uneasiness about him in that you realise, okay, I'm laughing at this, and he's talking about eating people. Yeah, that's... It's funny, but it also is a tad uneasy. But yeah, as I said, he's the highlight of the episode, and it kind of darts back between the space station and the future, and I'm not entirely sure when it is, but it's apparently in Spain, and it is quite a nice thing. They also get some help from a couple who, well, I don't entirely know if they're a couple, but they meet them while they're out moth hunting, and it turns out they're in a restaurant. A couple named Oscar and Anita, played by James Saxon and Carmen Gomez. And you know what? Towards the end, well, towards the climax of part 3, you actually see one of them die, and unlike in other Doctor Who deaths, this one, he's kind of stabbed through the heart, and you're just kind of sat there watching and going, whoa. I mean, yeah, we've seen death before on Doctor Who, but it's usually like this big, dramatic, big end piece, and to see this guy just get stabbed and die, it's weird. It's kind of uncomfortable, but then it's surprisingly realistic. But as I said, the two Doctors actually does two things for my Doctor Who collection. The first of all, and the possibly less exciting of them, is that it now means that with the 15 stories of classic Doctor Who that I now finally have at least one story from each classic Doctor, with 4 from William Hartnell's era, 2 each from Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, Tom Baker and Peter Davison, and 1 from Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann's eras. But the other one, and slightly more exciting for me, is that the two Doctors completes a collection within a collection of multi-Doctor stories. Because along with the two Doctors, the 5 Doctors, the Day of the Doctor, and Twice Upon a Time, the two Doctors manages to complete a multi-Doctor collection. So you never know, maybe one of these days I'll have a sit down and just have a multi-Doctor day, just watching each multi-Doctor story and seeing each one interact with each other. You never know, it might be fun. So, anyone want to join me for a multi-Doctor marathon? Probably not, but you know what? It's fun to think about. Anyway, the two Doctors. Not a brilliant story, but you know what? It was fun. And sometimes in Doctor Who, fun is all you really want. Anyway, until next time, see ya.